first off, we have the approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes from September 26th of 2017. Has the board had a chance to review the minutes? Do we have a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting September 26, 2017 as submitted.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is the executive session meeting minutes from September 26, 2017. Has the board had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Do we have a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes from September 26, 2017 as submitted.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is the chairman's report. A couple of items on the that I want to mention. These aren't action items. It's just things I want to bring to everybody's attention. We continue to have complaints about the sound quality, and particularly the recording sound quality. And for all of us who have watched the videos, it just gets difficult. I've talked to Jim. He has proposed that we purchase an omnidirectional microphone and a sound bar. And the sound bar would help to make everybody's voice louder, and it would, you know, when Dan McCrae sits at that side of the table, it would capture his voice, and then by having a sound bar, it would be captured better on the camera as well. Jim does not think it's a camera problem. He thinks it's a function of us not having sufficient sound to get to the camera. He estimates that cost to be somewhere between $700 and $800. He's going to find us a package that works, and I think we should commit to purchasing that so that we have better quality audio. The alternative is to buy a more professional grade camera, which itself is $1,100 or $1,200, and then you still have to buy the microphone that's going to sit in the middle of the table, which is another $400. It's an $800 expenditure versus a $1,400, $1,500 expenditure. So the number of complaints we get, it's weekly. It's monthly. Every time we have a meeting, we get a variety of complaints about the quality, and the room is what it is, but I think we can do a little bit better, and we do have the money available to us to do that purchase with. Correct? So I'm making an estimate, and then we'll move to approve that. I'm not asking for authority to buy it this month. I'm just putting that bug in your ear.
However, there has been some discussion about the city purchasing it because this room needs that for other meetings as well.
Right, and obviously if the city would purchase it, then we wouldn't have to.
Okay.
And my only concern is, and so we'll have a microphone sitting in the middle of the table, being amplified through the sound bar, which will be installed where?
Jim, where would you put the sound?
I think it'll be probably somewhere between those two cameras, those two televisions.
So
Just like on a, it's just like you have on a home entertainment thing. So it's just going to elevate the sound a little bit. Pretty much we can hear everybody that is facing the camera, but when we get a full table, it's the problem is like when Dan McCrae or anybody else is talking, I can't really, my camera just doesn't zone in on them.
Right.
So.
Neither can anybody in
Right.
the room.
Right. I mean, I'm just concerned about if we amplify our voices, the speaker is going to be firing straight at the microphone again, and I would be concerned about feedback. Or, I mean, I'm not an audio technician, but
I don't think that's an issue. It's just basically going to be, and we can adjust that, but it's like going to be that the people in the audience, especially when we have a full hall, and especially when we're having people sitting around, it's going to just amplify the sound a little bit, not like it's going to be like a big sports stadium kind of sound.
I guess my only thoughts would be it's better to do the right thing once than to do sort of halfway measure several times. And if the better way would be to have a microphone sitting on the table feeding directly to a camera, I mean, to me that seems like it's the right way to do it. It's a better way to do it. I mean, to really solve the issue. I mean, again, I'll take your.
When we were tossing things, weighing things up, is that when when nothing is being filmed, people in the room will be able to utilize that so they can hear.
Right.
So, you know, it's a matter of like, do you want that to benefit the audience or solely the camera? That's all.
I will defer to your expertise.
So the next thing I want to bring up is the DDA now owns multiple pieces of property throughout the city, some of which would be used in the town center immediately, but some of which are sort of on the outskirts. We continue to have offers from a wide variety of people to lease out our vacant buildings. And I think in the past we have steadfastly said we weren't going to commit our buildings to anything. But as we move into this town center process, I want the DDA board to be aware that there are opportunities to lease the buildings out, to have out clauses early enough that we could, you know, have tenants that are agreeable to moving out even while they're making improvements to the properties around the city. So again, it's not anything to approve tonight, but I'm just changing the expectations of what we've always said about the properties over the last couple of years. Okay? Next thing up is the financial report.
Okay. There's a rather lengthy package or lengthy series in your package that goes into a lot of detail on a number of different things. No real significant changes from last month. We haven't really done anything in that period of time, so no real changes. The one thing that I would like to point to is that Adam has included the calculations for the homestead's payment. Do you have anything to add about that, Adam?
Which page are you on?
There's no page number, but it's probably 2/3 of the way back
What's it
in the
say?
package. So it looks like this.
Oh, yeah, we got it. It's on the agenda at the end.
Oh, okay, it's a separate item. Okay. Then we'll, any questions about the financing at this point?
I do not. All right. There's nothing to approve there. Thank you for going through that with us. Next item up is the town center. Earlier today, I emailed out the draft master plan development agreement, the conceptual master plan project scope, and the project timeline. I've asked representatives from Seven Oaks to be here tonight to talk to us a little bit about what they think they're going to do, and then to give us an opportunity to reintroduce ourselves to the Seven Oaks team. Bob Royals, regrettably, is on the West Coast because his daughter is having a baby, and Bob, you need to get your priorities in order. So, so please come up and introduce yourselves, and then let's talk about the comments on the conceptual master scope and answer any questions that we've got.
Sure, great. I can, so my name is Randy Holmes. I think I met a lot of you guys in
Let's
the.
put it on this side so
Oh,
you're better facing the
Yeah,
camera.
let's go.
Randy Holmes with Seven Oaks, one of the owners with Bob Boyles of our company. Seven Oaks, as you may recall from our meetings, we've been officially in business since '04. Prior to that, we've been in the real estate business, Bob, for almost 40 years now, me for about 20 years. Andrew Roberts joins me, one of our associates who will be the point person for us on this project. And first off, we just want to say thank you for this opportunity to be back in front of you. We're very excited, remain excited, as we were back in the spring to engage with the city and the DDA on this important project for Chamblee. So, you know, in the course of just really the last 2 weeks, we've kind of been reinserted and have been getting back up to speed with the process, having multiple meetings with Adam and John, met you guys as well to some degree. And we did present some comments, nothing too major to the scope agreement on that. And again, just received a copy of the development agreement here late this afternoon, which have not had time to go through, but we'll certainly do that. Again, we look forward to a collaborative process. You know, we are comfortable with the scope as outlined. We did work through this timeline that remains still subject to comments. You know, we're flexible on it, but what we've outlined is a 6-month process, really kicking off November 1. And we think that is an achievable timeline. We think we'll be able to get through these documents in short order. And we have already started reaching out to several consultants, the most important being the town master planner. We will be back to you guys to present several options on that front. We've got some ideas on that and are just now soliciting some updated proposals on that front. So a little premature to be able to report anything too concrete, but wanted y'all to put a face with the names. And again, Bob sends his regrets. He will be kind of the senior point person. Andrew will be the day-to-day guy. We're a small shop. We'll all be involved, so you'll see me as well as some of our other folks. But ready to jump in once we can get through some of the last little paperwork.
Right, the last 2 weeks, I'll just add, I do appreciate, we've had some good communication. It's been a really efficient process so far.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Enjoy. I look forward to continuing that on with you guys. So, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you go through the master agreement, which I know you haven't had a chance to review
Yeah,
yet, I would like for you to keep in mind that part of what had generated the master scope was the question of, at the end of the 6 months, exactly where are we? What's our jumping off point for the next phase of this? So as we have tried to define the conceptual master plan in the agreement, I would like for you to make sure that it's in the deliverables that you plan on achieving in the scope.
Got it.
And so that they coordinate well. I don't expect you to answer this tonight, but I do want to have an answer to what our jumping off point in 6 months would be. What we'll be able to do.
Okay. Great. No, I mean, the goal is obviously to have a very vetted, plan, master plan for the town center area. And but no, absolutely. That's. I mean, obviously we want to get into this with full alignment with the city and have a clear expectation from the get-go. So that's important to us too. I mean, as we focus our time on this engagement. So absolutely.
I have a couple of questions. Will you be using the previous development firms, what they've done so far?
I think we are going to have discussions with their master plan architect. Again, I think it's prudent to interview a couple groups. We've got relationships with other firms as well, but they are one on the list. I don't know if any other consultants the prior firm had used. I do know their land planner that they were using that we'd like to talk to as well. They obviously spent a fair amount of time on this, which I think is helpful. So they'll be considered.
And just so I can understand, because I realize this is not the interviewing process that we did months ago. However, it was my understanding that Pope and Land already had their group, and they were not going to be interviewing people to come in and meet the roles that were necessary to pull this off. And what you're saying is that you are 7 Oaks, and then you will be pulling in people that maybe the financial people and that might be the planning people.
That's right.
Or firms, not people so much as firms, I suppose we should say. That's
right. I mean, we, like Pope and Land, are a developer, and so we sort of act, if you will, as kind of the coordinator of the overall project. There are many things that we do in-house, but when it comes to architecture and specific land planning, and some elements on zoning, things like that, we do rely on consultants. But they will all operate under our umbrella. They'll be contracted with us, and we will be your main point of contact. I think from time to time it'll make sense to bring those individuals here for presentations. We think that'd be helpful, and like we mentioned back in the spring, we do want this to be a collaborative process on the front end, which is why we don't have a planner here today. We wanted to, and again, we've got ideas in very short order. We will get to one, but they will all operate through us, and we'll be driving the message back to them, coordinating all efforts.
Okay, and I just wanted to clear that up because I was not, didn't know quite the structure of Pope and Land vis-a-vis your structure, and I think Pope and Land already had their groups in place, and, you know, that I just needed to know.
Sure, absolutely.
Take our time. Any questions from the audience?
I will, from the council members, stakeholders in this process too. This is, as you know, this is not just a DDA project, it's a citywide project.
So one of the things that I'm interested in is there being some sort of some resources where both council and DDA and the community can learn what is the financial capacity that we have for the scope of the project. I'd like to understand kind of how that's arrived at, how that's thought about, and then where in the process, is it that we actually start to begin to formulate the funding strategy to accomplish our end objectives. So those are two things that I'm very interested in us being able to have much more discussion on, particularly the capacity issue.
That's certainly a big issue. I know that you all been talking about bringing in a financial advisor of some nature. I may not be calling it by the right term.
That's right, it's a financial advisor.
Okay, so I think that will go a long way towards answering your question, because they're going to pull in different resources and different knowledge of different methods of doing this. I know Seven Oaks has done this sort of project before. They've got the private equity sources. So coming at from two different angles, you've got public resources, you've got private resources, and we've got to listen to our advisors on that. Timeline-wise, where do we have an actual itemization of that on the timeline?
Is that a permanent plan document?
It should be. So we have a scope document.
Like where does it usually fit? It's in the scope
Are
document.
you speaking of the financial piece specifically, or?
The financial plan for the implementation of whatever it is that is conceived
It's
of.
one of the tasks, isn't it?
It's task 4.
It's included as a subtask under, I think,
4A. I think it's
Yeah.
task 4A, which is after we've developed the plan, that the task 4A is basically implementation of potential additional real estate acquisition of parcels, or we're putting pieces in production, potentially with a private developer. So it's towards the end of a five task process.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. As we continue editing this, we may want to put a specific line item in. I think what Tom's talking about is not just real estate acquisition, he's talking about building and buildings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Things like that.
I use that as an example.
Well, if you begin to chart out how this is going to be funded too, I mean, really, the city should not be relied upon as this steam engine of finance. It's the private sector.
Absolutely. And that's been made clear to us in the meetings. I think in order to get to that point, we want to do the market study, we want to get the plan, and then be able on our end to solicit private
So I'd
investment.
love some resources that I can go and read about myself so I can better understand how it is that that's thought about in these types of projects.
Okay.
If you have that available. If you don't, I'll certainly look for it. But if you did,
It's a case by case. I mean, part of this process right now is really just formulating the foundation and getting to that jumping off point, like you're saying. Part of that is always going to be how's it going to be financed, each component and things like that. So that's all sort of in process.
Yeah, I mean, there's
one
table
team
first.
Correct, because I mean, there are different investors focused on different product type, be it office or retail or multifamily. And so I think it'll be kind of an iterative process on the financing source as we work through what the master plan is going to be.
Okay.
So I know that's not answering you specifically, but it is
I understand that.
it is a
Sure. I appreciate it.
And you have experience, I'm sure, with public-private partnerships and what tools that they can.
Absolutely.
All that kind of stuff.
at a bunch of different levels.
Yeah.
So yes.
I took a class this past week. It was put on by ULI, Urban Land in East Point, and it was really quite great. But what was interesting about it was that, oh, by the way, I stepped outside my comfort zone. I was the financial person. That's something that is I'm scared of. But it was interesting because, you know, we built a city, or we redeveloped part of the city. But they had, you punched into a computer program, an Excel sheet or whatever. If you do this kind of a building, then this is how your return is going to come, and these are the points you get, and all this kind of stuff. But I'm assuming that that's not really far off from a model that you would be able to present.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Interesting. I think it's different with each type of project, the nature of the project you're going to do, and if you already have a tenant in hand or you're building something speculatively, I mean, there's different parameters,
Yeah.
but sure. Yeah, a lot of the general framework for a development model is transferable across different product types.
I'd love to know the model that you learned so we can maybe on the sidelines be modeling what it is that you talk
We can
about.
have
So we can-
class, we can have class here.
Well, our
You
partners,
should have been there too.
our partner Bob, and Bob may have been there because Bob is the current chair of the ULI. And I remember he mentioned that was just last week.
Yeah.
That's what he emailed with you guys about.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I represented. It was great, it really was.
What other stuff are you guys working on?
Right now, we're finishing up an office development over in the Vinings area, which is now open and tenants are in. So that's basically wrapping up for us. But we're also finishing up a major project just up the road in Brookhaven at Perimeter Summit, which is a large mixed-use project we've been involved with for about 20 years. And so the office building shell, if you will, is just completed, and we're in the lease-up process.
You got some weather channel going there?
So they are literally moving in this week and the next couple weeks in one of the existing buildings of that project. That project has 4 office buildings. There's a new one that we just built, but we're also in charge of managing and leasing the existing ones. And Weather Channel's moving into the tallest of the 4 out there. But literally, just they moved in some folks last week, and are the next couple weeks moving everybody in. Yeah. So those are our 2 big projects. We do some land development. We're involved in a project in Forsyth County, a large master planned project where we have, and a lot of that is also transferable to this. That's an entirely private deal, but did a large master plan, got it rezoned, and it's sold.
Calcium or whatever you said?
It's called Deerfield Township. It's a little north of that, and I guess west of that. We were involved with a large project called Deerfield at Windward Parkway in 400 years ago, and this is an extension to that. But it'll have single-family residential, it'll have multifamily residential, retail, and some office. And so we're kind of in the midst of executing that.
Nice.
Yeah. So we kind of really involved in all phases of mixed-use development and acquisition of projects.
Yeah, any lessons learned are definitely welcome.
Oh yeah, lots of them. We've got our scars, so.
Yeah, no kidding.
Everybody gets through this scars.
I know you guys are redoing the fee
Yes,
proposal.
yes.
Any idea when we might be able to get that into us?
Soon, I'd probably say 2 weeks. Is that fair? I mean,
I think so. Yeah.
because we're in the process, we're restructuring it such that it'll include all the sub-consultant work, and that's, yes.
Great.
So we're in the process of that right now.
Okay. We don't need a special call meeting. What I'm going to ask is, we need to finish with the development agreement. It's the same development agreement that you all saw from before, modified because now it says 7 Oaks instead of the prior developer candidate. It has some more language from Dan Craig. He has reviewed all this and made his edits to it. So we've got, what we believe to be a pretty solid document. I would like everybody to make their comments on the scope as soon as possible. I think we did this exercise one time before. And then we need to all put our heads together to get a final version of that scope document together in timeline. In the interest of, we have 2 options. We can either have a special call meeting in a couple of weeks to try to vote to approve this, or you can authorize me to finish up the approval of it and go ahead and get it done. We're all busy. I know we don't like special call meetings, but if we need to, we need to do that. Does anybody have strong thoughts one way or the other on that?
special call. Not that I know, President.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's whatever we feel is best. If we need to do a special call meeting, we need to schedule it tonight and then work towards that deadline. If we're just going to authorize me to finish up, I sort of feel like everybody's seen everything before, so I feel like this is our second time through it. I was hoping we wouldn't have to do a special call meeting, but again, I'm not going to tell you what to do if everybody's got comfortable with this.
I think we can do it online.
Okay, so let's have everybody make their comments, and then, so we're gonna move for me to go ahead and get this stuff done and get it authorized.
No, I mean, before we make a motion, the only one thing that I would add on that, it sounds like there's not going to be an agreement for a minimum of 2 weeks. Based on that, the day one of this project timeline will not happen by November 1st, and so the timeline clearly should be revised.
Sure.
It'll have to be, and the termination date, the agreement itself is key towards that deadline as well, of April 30th. So we'll have to push the whole thing back 2 weeks. I do want to stress that once we kind of set this timeline and set these agreement dates, I really do want to keep them. I understand projects run long, you always have that sort of thing, but,
Wait, I'm confused. I don't see anything on here that says there's a November 1st.
Top.
Yeah, there's no meeting on November 1st.
no, there isn't. But in order for us to make this document, which I just sent out to you, the agreement, has a termination date of April 30th at 5 p.m.
Gotcha.
And that's 6 months from
Gotcha.
November
So we
1st.
shift that.
But it does discuss a kickoff meeting 1 week after the beginning of the contract.
What?
And if
Where does
that's
it say?
the
Where
first
does it say?
column,
No,
basically.
where does it say 1 week?
That was meant.
I'm interpolating because it's halfway in between November 1st and
Oh,
November
okay.
15th.
But there's no actual date. on
There's
it.
no actual date, it's roughly a week. And my only point on that is that does that need to be a special call meeting? And if so, do we need to set that date now? Or set the date?
What exactly is the kickoff meeting?
John, do you have a suggestion?
Well, I was just going to say, so the kickoff meeting that you're referring to is actually an internal kickoff meeting where we, Adam and I and Matt, were meeting with them to kind of finalize schedules. So it's not a public, I mean, it wouldn't be like a public meeting where we are kicking off the project as much as a final, a kickoff to make sure that our schedules are all in alignment.
As long as we don't have to get the critical mass of meeting or something.
When we sit down for that meeting, we are going to try to schedule out the remainder of the meetings and then propose that out there as part of the timeline. And there certainly will be special call meetings. We're going to try to coordinate it as much as possible with set meetings, but at least then we'll have some predictability. We'll know if we have a special call meeting or not. All right, so, we need a motion.
Motion to authorize the chair.
Motion to authorize the chair to finalize details of the
Agreements.
agreements
And scope,
and scope
and timeline,
and timeline,
and to execute same.
and to execute the same with 7 notes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all very much. I do appreciate your trust, and obviously I will keep everybody posted on anything you do. I do want your comments, so.
Well, and I just want to, I guess this is a little bit of sour grapes, but we need lots of notification, not day before,
No,
not even week before, of meetings and.
Sure.
and all that kind of stuff. Just had to get that off my chest.
Yes. Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you guys for being here. Very much, we really do appreciate
Oh,
it.
no, happy.
This is meant to be an informal sort of thing, so, I appreciate you spending your time on this tonight.
No, happy to, and again, thank you for the opportunity. We are very excited to jump.
We are too. I look forward to working with you.
Likewise, very much. Thank you.
All right. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is old business. First item in old business is the Arts and Business Incubator update.
And you want to do that?
we did have a meeting to discuss kind of the next steps on this, and haven't been able to get in with the CAD yet, so it's not that big an update, but we are trying to schedule a call for this week to get into the weeds and CDBG rules at this time. But I think we got to get a good meeting to kind of narrow down the scope about what this is. It's a couple years later, things have changed, so.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
since Rob and Robert weren't here when we first started this conversation years ago, do you want to give them a little backstory of what we're talking about?
Yeah, so I think it was 2015
Or 14.
14.
2014.
Around 2014, early 2014, there was an application made to the county through their community development block grant program, which they administer. It's federal funds, grant funds, meant to create jobs and alleviate blight or some combination thereof. So there was an application for an arts and business incubator where the Cdda would receive grant funds to help create an arts and business incubator. But in order to pull that down, obviously you have to have the money available to spend it first. It's a reimbursement grant, and you have to have a business plan to prove to the county that you are going to do A, B, and C, and that'll contribute to the economy and by creating jobs. So that business plan was never really fleshed out, so now that's where we are at the moment to capture those funds. So Laura Lindman, Business Outreach Coordinator, my staff, we met last week with Dan, Leslie, and Brian, and to kind of make sure that we get a handle on what the scope of this should look like now that it's 2017, and what a business, arts and business incubator kind of looks like. So, and to create that. So Laura has some experience creating business plans for grant programs, including CDBG. So she's putting together a rough outline. But rules change, things change in that amount of time. So we're eager to get in front of the CAB to discuss what that would mean. Great. There'll be more information forthcoming. But we will have to have some budget considerations, which hopefully will dovetail the next month's meeting as we look to head to the fiscal year 2018 budgeting. So we'll have determine how we allocate those funds.
And just to recap, what I think I heard you tell us at that meeting, I think we don't have to spend all of it at once to get it all reimbursed. We can do it in phases, correct?
Correct. And you can also leverage private funds to that aim as well, because when you're pulling money down from CDBG, they're going to say, well, how many jobs are you created? It's usually based on the total amount that you're requesting. I believe it was $125,000.
That's correct.
That was awarded, although there was a little wiggle room in there. So what they're going to require is that one job is created per $37,500 that's spent. So you have to be a little bit more strategic about how you spend that money, because you can't just go hire free people and not have any funds left over to actually do things. So, but you can leverage private funds through partnerships, through donations perhaps, to third party, some arts organizations here. But maybe there's an existing business who needs help getting over the hump and hiring those three people, and if they do the things that are outlined in the application and contribute to the goals in CDBG, then perhaps that's the way to do it. But there's a lot of different ways to skin it, but we just need to be comfortable with how we're going to do it, get a business plan in place, and then bring in money.
If we were to create jobs that were actually city jobs, that they would count, would they? The reason I'm asking is because, we're talking about a space. We're talking about some sort of staff, be it one person or whatever, to manage that space. If that were a city position, would that count towards creating a job?
Oh, municipal job, like city
Yeah.
chamber guy. Oh,
Right, she's saying if someone was running that space and they just happened to be a city employee.
Well, let's say that we ran an art space under the umbrella of the Parks and Rec department, which other cities do, by the way. And we created a separate position to manage that space and maybe other you know, arts-related festival, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But if it were a city staff, or if it was a job created within, a municipal job,
Yeah.
would that count as a job?
I'll check with the county. It may, if there is some kind of agreement struck, you know, that says we're gonna do this and you do that.
Yeah.
If that may be part of the contribution,
I'd be interested to
Yeah.
find out the
I
answer
think
to
it's
that.
great if they say yes, that'd be, it's a great idea.
okay, I'll inquire with them if we get our meeting.
Is there anything we need to approve at this point?
No, but
Just
we'll,
an update.
as soon as we get a framework together, then we'll put it to you for comments, and we'll see what the cabinet says. And they, you know, every year, I believe they approve, the document for their CPG, it's their work plan, so we'll need to go back to that and make sure that we get the goals, since it is up to their organization.
All right. Thank you very much. Is that it on the RC Theater for now? Okay. Next item up is the SLX by Atlanta, which is the Nissan space update. All right, so we had approved the Nissan abatement last year. Nissan, the Chamblee SLX came back to us asking for a modification of their abatement in order to accommodate their HUD financing. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, big federal body, has their checklist, and they don't budge off their checklist, period, end of story. The explanation for why they went with HUD is that they can get longer-term financing with HUD than they could with any private lender. So instead of having to do a construction loan and then buy it out with another private loan, which gives them the possibility that the Hickman family will be out of that property in 4 to 6 years, the Hickmans wanted to express a much longer commitment to us. And that's what the HUD loan ultimately came down to, and I certainly appreciate that. The problem that put that put the DDA in is that HUD required us to subordinate our secured position in the property, and then HUD required us to waive certain other rights and to agree in advance to execute certain permits, easements, things of that nature, and to essentially execute a power of attorney in favor of Chamblee SLX. That's what has caused the entire delay for the last 2 months, is trying to find a middle ground to accommodate the HUD financing, while at the same time not opening us up to obligations imposed by Chamblee SLX through the use of the power of attorney. The resolution was an indemnification agreement whereby Chamblee SLX pledged to not use the power of attorney, and then they added another $100,000 to the escrow account, so that if we have to enforce the indemnity agreement, we have a fund already set aside for the enforcement of that, which fund becomes ours after a period of time. We have an agreement in principle on that. Dan is working on the final adjustments to the language with counsel for Nissan SLX. And we're going to get the job done, and the project will continue as planned, which is what needed to happen in this case. It does bring up the question, in my mind, of once we approve abatements, what should be the terms under which we will go back and do amendments? I want us to be cautious and conscious of the fact that the abatements themselves are heavily negotiated, and they're premised upon our secured position going forward and all the other conditions as we move forward. So when somebody comes back to us, I would like us to start evaluating amendments as though they are asking us anew to renew the abatement. And would we renew the abatement under the new terms? And that way I think we can derive what the actual value of their changes are and adjust the abatement amount accordingly. And the reason I want to employ that sort of standard is, as developers come back to us, I want to be able to say to them, hey, that's great, I'm glad we gave you that abatement, now we're going to reevaluate that. That'll be okay with you, right? Which I think will stop requests for amendments, except in very dire circumstances, which I do believe is what the Nissan SLX situation fell into. That project was in danger of not happening had an amendment not been made. So that's kind of my soapbox and my report on that. Are there any questions?
it's a good idea.
How will that hold up in the Supreme Court, the indemnification clause or agreement not to pursue?
So, it will hold up. They're willfully signing an indemnification agreement. Here's what we can't bind. We can't bind HUD.
Yeah, I
And we
know.
can't get HUD to change anything. So there was nothing we're going to put in place to stop HUD or alter what HUD is going to do. However, the danger from HUD we felt was remote enough that we could make the changes that we needed to make. And then it was, if we have to accept HUD's changes, how do we bind the developer and the Hickman family more specifically? And that's really where the rubber was hitting the road, because making HUD move was never an option.
I know, yeah,
You know what I mean?
sure.
All right, so as soon as those final documents are done, we'll get those executed and I'll circulate them for everybody to take a look at. And if anybody has any questions, I will do my very best to go line by line through them. It is very complicated, and I'll be the first to tell you that it is over my head of expertise. This is Dan's core area of figuring out how to secure these things. He is comfortable with it. He's not here tonight, but this is all premised on him getting comfortable and making the recommendation that we can move forward with it. Okay? All right. Next item in old business is Peachtree Station. This is Whole Foods. Van, why don't you talk about Whole Foods and how they've come back and what they're asking?
So as you know, they told us they wanted to sell the property to a third party, I believe, New Mexico Teachers Pension or something like that. The buyer is a little uncomfortable with the clause that we worked so hard to put in there about it being a Whole Foods and nothing else. And S.J. Collins, developer, is said that a payment to the DDA, they would be willing to make a payment to the DDA to slightly modify that language so that we still have the language there, but it allows for the ability, if Amazon, who now owns Whole Foods, decides to change the name in some way, that we're not all of a sudden to say, hey, sorry, it's not Whole Foods anymore, use the deal. So there was some language that they sent over. I'm not sure if you talked with Dan about that language and if we need to counter that language in any way, or if Dan is comfortable with that language. But they're willing to make.
They only want a concession to be able to change the name and not the business model?
That was the understanding. Isn't that how the language
I
read?
don't think it's just a name, and this is where I think, this is
I
where I
can
think,
give me a second to pull up the language that they sent.
sure.
But go ahead and say everything.
So, right now, essentially, we have the ability to prevent another store from going in there. And the background of this is, at the last minute, when we were considering the abatement, they had asked if it would be okay for them to put a 365 store in there. And we said, no, we want this to be a Whole Foods. And we had several meetings where we talked about the relative value of a Whole Foods store 365 and how that would affect the entire area in a much greater way than another store would. And so a significant amount of the value of the abatement is tied to it being a Whole Foods. What we told them at the time is that we would obviously entertain any amendment that they came up with at any time. So in the scenario where Whole Foods goes out of business, we don't want to have a vacant space there, and so we'd allow them to put something else in that
So
store.
we wouldn't be preventing them from putting anything in there. It's just the abatement would go away.
Right.
And if frankly, if Whole Foods went out of business, the abatement would go away.
But that's not the question presented tonight. I think that's the extreme example.
That is the extreme.
We're being asked whether the value of having a Whole Foods in there is worth $100,000. And that's what I'm
Or
at.
150 or some dollar.
Or some dollar amount. And to be very specific about the way this works, and Dan would back me on this if he's here, right now the decision is ours. They want to make the decision theirs. The middle ground is to say that they will seek our consent, which consent will not be unreasonably withheld. that language is going to get your butt sued every single time, because what you think is not unreasonably withholding consent, they absolutely think it's unreasonably withholding consent. And when there are millions of dollars on the table, you've just added the language that is gray and gets you into court very quickly.
I'm not by any means that it's much more extra here. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but the line that they wanted to add said, operated by Whole Foods Market under the trade name Whole Foods Market and operating under substantially the same full-service model as the majority of stores, other than stores operating under the 365 model, operated by Whole Foods Inc. So the way I read it, and maybe I'm misreading it, is they're saying as long as it's still operated by.
But again, substantially similar is the same language that Dave was just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says under substantially the same full-service model.
What exactly does substantially the same? It's a grocery store, it's substantially the
If
same
they
model.
change, if they change every other Whole Foods operating model to be whatever it is that they might want to
Yeah,
be.
Amazon says, hey, we're going to
Yeah.
change, it's not really Whole
Yeah.
Foods anymore, we're going to do X, Y,
However,
Z.
I'm not sure that, I mean, we sort of can't stand in their way, because if they've got a failing business model and they.
Again, they can do whatever they want. That's not our business. The only question is are we going to provide the base?
Right.
And at that point, personally, I'm not terribly interested, you know,
Yeah.
what we talked about, the reason that project was sold is that it was a Whole Foods.
Yeah, yeah.
So, a couple of other points to make. Would it make a difference to anybody if we added a timeline after which we might add that language? We add a provision now saying after 10 years, we can insert that language. 10 years is halfway through the term
No,
of.
it's not.
What's the term?
The term is only about 10
Yeah.
And after 5
years.
years.
It depends, it's a dollar amount, so it depends on when we hit that
It's
dollar.
up to 15 years
Or 7.5 million. Right.
So,
So it could, the term could end up being 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, tell me what the value of the property is, and play along.
the other thing that I want to point out is that unlike the SLX Nissan, this is a project that is built and we're being asked to make a modification so that the developer can sell it. It is a purely profit line driven decision on the developer's part to ask us to give up one of our rights, as opposed to something negatively affecting Chamblee because the building won't go up at all because the financing won't go through. I think they're two very different situations, and the motivation is entirely different in one scenario than the other.
Well, it's clearly about the value of the property. The value of the property is X if it's solely a Whole Foods, if it's X plus some other amount if we change the language.
Here's the only thought process that went through my head when it was presented was, one, the property's been built, so we got the property built. We took a contaminated lot and turned it into something beautiful. The second part that we really got excited about was the halo effect of things that were going to be built in and around, and we're seeing some of that occur as, you know, other stuff is being built in and around. The kicker is, hey, if we can put some money in our pocket to work on other projects, to me it seems like we've accomplished 2 of the 3 goals, which was get a thing built and to have a Whole Foods halo effect. The only other thing that what you're saying would be 5 years from now, 6 years from now, is it still going to be a Whole Foods?
Right.
What is Amazon?
And would it still be providing the halo effect if it becomes something else? Would then the businesses that are also within that property, with those
Would they say, hey,
businesses
we're going to
change?
Sure. But they can change regardless.
They can change regardless, but it's a Whole Foods, and a Whole Foods has a certain demographic of clientele that the other businesses want to be associated with.
You're absolutely right, and that's the point that we have to decide is how much is that worth?
What's the difference between the price at X plus, you know?
It's all very soft. Whatever we do, I want to make sure it's very cut and dry. I am very much against any language that says will not be reasonably withheld. I don't like the substantially similar language. I could get behind if we.
But that's a similar, it's the same. I don't know if that matters. It's substantially the same full service.
Again, substantially.
Yeah, I know, I just want to make sure that we're saying the right language.
I could understand having a timeline that says, after this point, we will change the language to something else. But that's only if we could justify that the halo effect is worn out, evaporated, whatever it's going to be, that we've gotten the most value out of it, and it's got to have an appropriate dollar amount attached.
I think it's a great idea. But that timeline, because if our deal only lasts 10, 12 years, and we can get 5 or 6 years in that.
Well, the issue though is that the value is tied directly to the amount of the abatement, because what they are asking us to do is to terminate one of the key provisions of the abatement itself, and there's significant value attached to that. If we go out 5 years and then it changes from being Whole Foods, then we did not get value for what we wanted. I think the way I would propose going back to them is saying, I tell you what, we will add this language in and terminate the abatement in 6 years, and then you can do whatever you want. But that hits their bottom line, because the value of the abatement is the value of the sales price.
Yeah, there was a question that
That's asking us to subsidize their sale.
No, because the abatement stops.
Well, what they're asking to is increase the
Here was
price.
a question that I asked Dan McCray and never responded. So
What's
David,
the
I don't know if he responded to you, and maybe Adam, you might know the answer to this. So originally they came to us and they were already in the brownfield program. They were getting like $4 million from the brownfield, and we sort of took that over and said, we're going to give the $7.5 million, and you won't be in the brownfield anymore, correct? Isn't that how it works?
No, you don't get money from the brownfield. I mean,
They wouldn't have to pay tax.
They wouldn't have, yeah, they could have applied for the freeze, so they would have had, there would have been some tax revenue, but it wouldn't have been a Whole Foods tax revenue. It would have been
Yeah,
the purchase price less however much they spent remediation, which was a significant amount, so it would have been capped at about
what they pitched.
$2 million for 10 years, right?
Okay, what they pitched to us in the data that we'd gotten was that it was like $3.5 or $4 million worth. And that we were putting in place of that and the $7.5 million. My question is, if Whole Foods went away and the abatement went away, are they allowed to go back and recoup some of that brownfield or
I think that's gone.
that's gone?
I have a feeling.
Okay, that's what I would like to see, but I didn't
They're
know.
in the brownfield program, whether or not they can go back and submit a letter to the tax commissioner saying, hey, we spent all this money, now have our taxes, I don't know, that might be a damn question.
Well, I asked them.
I have to imagine that's a construction moving forward program, and now the construction is done.
And actually now they've closed. Because
So they
they're
wouldn't have
closing,
access to
you know,
that.
so they closed that, and they're in the brownfield program as to limitation of liability right now, so they're in that program, and they have to do some monitoring and all that stuff.
But as far as the dollar amounts.
Yeah, they may not be able
All
to.
right, that's what I wanted to hear, because I was scared that if our deal went away, they would still be able to capitalize some of it.
Well, and the extra money that they asked from us was because of extra expenses. though.
Correct. I just didn't want our deal to go away and then go back and get money from that.
It's a double dip or something.
Yeah, that's why I was concerned about it.
Well, we have a public comment section in a little while, I'm sorry. There are 2 points that I want to draw from this. Number one, going back to the analysis that I want to impose from the Nissan Champion SLX, what would we have given had this not been proposed to us as a Whole Foods? I think that's how we need to look at this. Even if it comes up again on an ongoing basis, that's the way I really want
I
to.
don't think I would, I mean, I can't speak for y'all, but I don't think I would have approved anything for what I'm
I voted no to begin with. So.
Yes. No, I mean, wasn't that the consensus, was that we were doing this because, and that's why we put that language in there, because we wanted that Whole Foods.
It wouldn't have been.
If the Whole Food, if it was a Winn-Dixie, I wouldn't have voted yes for it. Nothing against Winn-Dixie.
The other thing I want to point out is historically, and I'm saying this for the record and for everybody here, and I want everybody to know this because I want the developers to know this. The Peachtree Station deal was the first deal we did where we started to say we have the ability to exert some control over these projects. And developers need to understand you don't get to come to to us for money and not have to give up some level of control. And that's
Right.
exactly what we're seeing
Right.
here. So going forward, as developers come to us, they need to understand this is not just a handout. This is going to have strings attached. And these are those strings, and if you don't like them, you're welcome to not get the abatement.
So it's a common thing that development companies sell their project once they've got it built. Do we really think this is going to stand in the way of them selling their project? And if it does, and they maintain ownership of their project, what will that look like? From their point of view, not from us.
It's actually a sales price effect, because what's gonna happen is the buyer's gonna say, we're not purchasing that property with that requirement on it. And they're gonna say, the abatement goes away, and the
So
buyer's
it's
gonna say,
negotiable.
they're gonna pay
Yeah.
$11 million less.
Okay, I see.
So it's a bottom line adjustment is what it really comes
Yeah.
down to. But that again is
I don't think we should fund
not
that.
our
No.
issue. Right.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Is there a motion on anything here?
No.
I
Is
mean,
there
unless,
a question for
unless
President?
Dan had, well, that's why I was hoping Dan would be here to say, hey, you know, if we modify the language that they're saying, here's how
I
it.
mean, we're not doing anything. I mean,
No.
we need a motion if we wanted to change it,
Yeah.
but I don't believe we need a motion if we're just keeping.
My recommendation would be wait until Dan can give guidance on whether or not there's other language that could be, protect our rights and give them
But
a.
I think any
Yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
I think any changes reduce, it's no longer
Well,
the Whole Foods model.
Let me suggest this. Right now, there's not a formal proposal in front of us. This is just, I'm talking, the purpose of this conversation, just like in the chairman's report, is I'm hoping that we're setting ourselves on the same wavelength on how we think about these abatements. Should they make a formal proposal, then we'll evaluate it, and then we'll have Dan here to tell us what the language specifically means, and it'll be a vote on a specific proposal. We don't have a proposal tonight, this is more of a discussion.
Motion.
Motion.
What?
To do not
To
to
do
do
nothing. No, we don't need to do that. All right. Thank you for listening to all that. New business, the Olmsted, administrative payment review.
This is, real quick, this is subject, sorry, this is an MOU, details from the MOU, back in whenever you ratified this, but the Olmsted is done, its, project is complete, and there was a provision in the schedule for a yearly administrative payment starting 2017, so this is no later than this year, so they were required to send a calculation to you by October. They got this in time in this meeting. And the language in the MOU says that subject to the approval of the meeting. So what happens if you look at their numbers and you say that's not right, then you can suggest some other number. But the calculations look like they're correct based on the fair market value that was established this summer by the tax commissioner. And there were two methods laid out in the MOU. The first was it was either the administrative payment was equal to either 10% of all taxes owed if it were a project, totally private project. So all taxes, city and schools, second method was either the higher of that or 100% of whatever city taxes based on the mill rate in play. So our mill rate hasn't really changed in the last few years. The county has fluctuated a little bit, but it's based on the mill rate in effect at the time of the valuation, fair market valuation, which was back in June, I think, so before the mill rate change, but which is 42.441. So that's where you see that first calculation. The county has valued the project today at $30,136,200. 40% assessment, that's $12,480. So a lot of mill rate to that, which is the 42.441 per thousand, and so that rate is 4%. So total due, so that would have been done, or would have been due is $511,604, 10% of which is $51,000. So it works out better doing the 100% method on the city's mill rate because that's so it worked out. And so right now they're calculating that at $77,148. If you agree with that, then you approve this calculation, and then they will send you a check within 2 days. That's how
I have a question.
It's
pretty close to the number that we were presented with. I mean, they equated an estimate of 80,000 when we did it. So it's pretty darn close.
What were their actual construction costs?
Well, they pulled down, I believe they pulled down the total bond amount now, which is 48 million. But that, again, the county evaluated this a few months ago, so the full project value won't be realized until next year. And I think that was contemplated in the documents.
What will change between now and, I guess this summer when it was evaluated,
It was
it was still under construction, and so the construction value was based. Okay, because that was my concern. I was just looking at the numbers, and it seemed like valuing it at $30 million for 471,000 square feet is under $100 a square foot, and I didn't think anybody could build anything for under $100 a square foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's low, so next year, we should assume that would increase. You would
Right.
get, the valuations would go up. But, yeah, just worked out, because of the delays they had in the project,
Yeah.
sewer and some other stuff, just kicked their into the project. You know, you did get some money from them because, we amended the deal for the time frame, and they were paying us per month, that they went over the original date.
Right.
But now they're done.
How much did they pay total?
I think
15,000.
Yeah, so that was an unexpected 15,000 that you got.
I'm comfortable with this.
Which one?
Well, the 100% of city
Yeah.
tax.
I mean, they would probably prefer Red 51, but I suggest that we ratify that.
Yeah.
I think 77 is a better number.
You know what's interesting, I just pulled up, this was the document we were given on February of 2014, and they had it at, actually, for some reason I was thinking in my head, 80,000, they had it at $77,372.
Wow. Wow.
So,
What was the expected value of the property?
yeah, that was what I was looking at.
Man.
They, see, this is where it doesn't kind of jive, because they're saying projected cost of development, I'm sorry. They're saying projected cost of development was 42 million, 40% assessment, 16,800,000. Well, they have the millage rate, so the millage rate went down, because they had the millage rate back then at 48.95. Did the county,
Oh, wow, that's really.
did the county reduce
I
their?
don't think they reduced it that much. Yeah, it's been at 42 something for the last couple of years. I don't know.
Can I make a suggestion?
I think that
This
this
is-
is going to be county plus the city.
This is the first time we've had to deal with this. We haven't had Dan review it just to make sure it's being calculated correctly. I don't think we have any reason to think it's calculated incorrectly, but
No, I checked it.
We don't have any say over the assessor's office, right? I mean, we can't go and say, hey, can we, all right, so normally you appeal your home and you want a lower valuation. Can we appeal and say we want a higher valuation? Is that allowed?
once it's done, it'll have a higher valuation, but what I would like to do is get Dan to bless this, and can we give our approval based on Dan's blessing of it, just to make sure that it has been calculated properly?
Yeah,
Because this is
sure.
the first time.
Yes.
So this is the county assessment, $30 million.
Yes, county assessment.
So the county's assessing fair market value on city-owned property that's not taxable.
Yeah, if you go to the tax assessment website, you can pull up the right, it'll still have a land value and an improved value,
Yeah.
total value, and then it'll be a zero.
This picture.
Oh, there it is.
And you got it inside a couple pages later.
So every single year,
They will assess the value of the property.
do they do that for all city property?
Yes.
They did.
Yes.
So we need a motion to authorize the acceptance of this valuation of the 100% of city tax method pending Dan McRae's review of the documentation.
Yes.
Is there a timeline on that?
Second.
Well, here's why I wanted to do that. I can get with Dan and get him to approve this to me by email, and then I can sign off on it so that we still have
I
quick.
So
we have to
We
actually.
have a motion
To take action.
Yes.
We need a motion to give the chair the authorization to sign the document as presented pending Daniel Frey's review and comment.
Correct, correct.
Dan has it, it was just.
Do we have a second on that?
Leslie?
Let's go ahead and vote it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. I'll make sure we get that taken care of. And again, if this wasn't the first time we were doing it, I would not prosecute quite that way, but I'm just doing it well.
Okay.
All right, that brings us to public comment. Please stand up, say your name. I'm sorry. And let me explain earlier, why I didn't have you speak earlier. The town center project is a little bit unique because it will involve buildings that belong to you. And so we need to involve the council members, but it's still not really a public comment sort of situation. So I'll apologize for that.
I'm Steve Collins, S.J. Collins, the Whole Food Club. And like I said, we feel like we delivered what we were required to deliver. And the only reason we could do that is because y'all said we appreciate it. And I wouldn't be standing here, and we're not here retraining. The only reason we're standing here asking this because Whole Foods went from a $14 billion company now to a $450 billion company because they were bought by Amazon. So just the clause in that in the document there makes it difficult for buyers to get their arms around it because what we're saying is it's still going to be a full service store. But Amazon could change the name of it, Whole Foods Amazon or something, and it wouldn't meet the requirements. So that's what the buyers are having trouble getting their arms around. So we just ask that y'all look at that some way and try to see if you can help us. Like I said, we're not here trying to retrade. We feel like we're just kind of stuck in a box just because they have been bought out by a huge company now. And like I said, I think that's good for everybody. They got a lot of bad press there for a while, and now you don't hear any bad press about Whole Foods anymore. So I just appreciate y'all's consideration.
Absolutely. We'll continue working on it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
Jim Goodrow, Section of Woods. I'd just like to throw out that when you decide that you're finally done with this video camera, Shambling History Project can make very good use of it, recording the observations of local citizens, how it was growing up and living in the city of Shambling. Just keep it in mind.
Excellent suggestion.
Good suggestion.
Thank you, Jim.
Anyone else?
I've participated with the E5 program, which is the Thomas Hogan, 3223 Clover Terrace, members of the council. The jobs creation piece is not just the direct jobs, it's the ancillary jobs in most cases. The econometric model that they use with the E5 program would be all of the artists that are created, the food shop down the road that's actually got able to add staff because the incubator is actually there. So it's more than just the one job. So whether the government job is the one job that's actually a payroll job out of the gate, I don't think is a function that's going to have an impact on the impact that an arts incubator or business incubator would have here. So I want to make that statement. Number two, I very much am in agreement with the decision that you all will come to on both the SLX Atlanta project. I'm very familiar with HUD financing, especially for multifamily. It's one of the things that I do for a living. And I can tell you that HUD is very flexible, and I appreciate your taking such great lengths to make sure that the DDA, the city of Chamblee, the citizens are protected against a Goliath, which is the ever not willing to budge. In the event that you do need to speak to people that are on the inside of HUD with regard to the FHA multifamily program, I do have relationships that you can speak to in case you want to check and see if they really are as inflexible, in case you haven't done that research. Don't just believe what SLX Atlanta tells you.
Now, I've got personal experience living with HUD, professional experience. I take the word on that.
And third, I appreciate Mr. Collins being here. I couldn't agree more with your decision to allow for the decision that you made with regard to Whole Food Stand. If there's a time in the future where there's a more valuable brand that they want to bring to our market in exchange for the money that we're actually giving them for having done that, I fully believe that that's the only time we should entertain that. And right now, they would have to probably sell that project at a bit of a discount but not a total discount due to the risk that is associated with that brand name. That's business, folks. And I very much appreciate your point on the fact that with the underwriting, their profit on the sale, and that's nothing that we should be involved in. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Don, do we have a need to go into executive session today? Do we?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to OCGA, blah, 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 for the purpose of discussing or approving a real estate transaction.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so we'll go to executive. We're back in executive session. There being no other business, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
I'll get a couple of days.